Today is May 27th, 2025. My name is Bobby Goodman, and I'm interviewing Chuck Gottlich about his days at the Columbian Club. Welcome, Chuck.
Thank you, Bobby.
Glad to have you here. I'm going to jump right into these questions about the Columbian Club. Chuck, tell me, when did you join, and when were you a member of the Columbian Club?
Well, let me start from the beginning. Since ever I can remember, my family was a member of the Columbian Club. Before it moved to its its most recent location, where there was a golf course, it was on Garland Road. So,
Wow.
I remember being there many years. Okay, there was no golf course there. As I remember, it was mostly a social club at that time. I believe they had tennis. They had a swimming pool. As a matter of fact, I and several of my friends in my early years took swimming lessons there, which is probably the most traumatic part of my life. We used to actually hide from our parents when they were going to take us to swimming lessons, because Pop Kitchens was the meanest SOB ever. I'm telling you, he was terrible. But so I was there all that time. I never knew it as any other place than a social club. That I had friends that were there, my parents were there, we used to eat there on occasion. We used to have Easter egg hunts every year there. The only events I remember that I regularly did, probably because of the introduction I just told you, was my swimming lessons. The club then, as you know, and most people that are involved know, moved from that physical location in the early 50s. I don't know, it was 52 or 55, but in that time frame, and moved to the north part of the city, where a golf course was built, initially 9 holes and then subsequently 18 holes. And so that was about the time I was playing that sport. And so I played, I would think, from about the time that course opened. And I still to this day play with some of my same friends that I've played with for probably 70 years.
So from the earlier mid-50s, so you grew up at the club, and then when did you become a member yourself?
Well, I was a member with my parents until I believe I finished medical school, which is in 1970. And I really rarely played golf after that time, but part of my training was outside of the city, so I was basically outside of the city for the next 4 years. And when I moved back and was in practice, I'm a physician, I really didn't have time for golf, and I had a young family, so I may have played a couple of times over those years, but I really didn't play regularly and had no need or reason nor time to join the club at that time. But then I believe it's probably the early 90s, I don't know if it's 95 or just before that time, I rejoined. And I always thought I remembered the reason was because my wife said that she wanted our children were born in the mid-70s, to meet other Jewish kids. But all my kids tell me that's not true. They said that I joined to play golf and she finally let me do it. And my children did say that really there was no time for me to do that until about that time of my life.
And you're still out there, I understand?
Yes, as you know, or I'm sure you've gone through, there's been several iterations, but I was there for the Columbian Club, and at that time it was actually a country club where there was tennis and swimming and golf. And as you know, one of the major draws to the Columbian Club was its food. Of course, those were times where the food situation in the Dallas area was, if you will, to be envied, but not in the right direction. So it was really a standout place. It was a country club at that time, and then subsequently has changed. And as I know everyone knows, except for those may have just seen my part of this interview, that it's now a golf course really only, and is owned by an individual, not by a group of people. That was the case in the country club, in the Columbian Club itself.
And you're still there?
I'm still there.
Wow.
As I mentioned to you before, fortunately, the owner today has been very good to us, as he calls us, remnants from the past, and he allows us to stay out there and play, and it's a perfect place, probably except for us. You know, we are the same people that we were 60 and 70 years ago, but we love it.
So let's go back to when I guess your folks joined. Do you think anti-Semitism at the time, did it play into them joining the club?
Well,
or
you know, I was probably 10 years old when I was 8 or 10 when we moved to, when the club went out to where it is now, or 12. So I really don't know that for sure. I know that there was concern that one wasn't able to get in many of the, quote, country clubs in Dallas at that time. And most of the Jewish people I know are fairly social, so they made a place where they could socialize. So that's my understanding. Never affected me,
Right.
that I could tell. And I know that when the club moved, there were several members that were not Jewish that were there. But obviously that was several decades after the Columbian Club was originally formed, I think, and was on Garland Road.
So when you were a young boy growing up at the club, what was kind of the makeup of the club? Do you recall? Was it were there families that had kids your same age, or were they just older people?
Well, yeah, the only thing, of course, my view is what I remember, and my view was my parents' friends and the children of them that I met, right? Mostly.
Sure.
So those became my friends in that context. So I have had several friends from the beginning, and I remember we were members when there was no golf course, but swimming, as I'd mentioned to you earlier. And all of my parents' friends, repetitively I would see at whatever events I was taken to that my parents went to. So I would see them when they played cards with each other. I would see them when they went to the Columbian Club. Even some of them we would take vacations with. So there was more than one family would go on vacation. So it was like an extension of the family almost, was what the Columbian Club was.
Your involvement at the club, you obviously came after, I guess you had your practice going and you're out of your medical school and you got involved with the club. What was your involvement at the club?
Well, I never had any administrative role or management roles. It was not the time of my life to do that, and that's not really, except for rare circumstances, that I get in those positions. So I was really an enjoyment member of the club. And that's what my involvement's been really the whole time I've been there.
Golf committees or any of the?
No, not on any.
Just enjoyed it.
Yeah, and again, there's probably excuses for that, vocation and other things, but I think that's probably part of my personality as well. Unless I was really involved in it, I wouldn't do it part-time.
The importance of the club to you and your family. You had, you grew up there. You had siblings or a sibling that was there as well. So you grew up as a family. You have a family that used the club as well.
Correct.
Did y'all have events out there? How did y'all use the club?
We did. As you know, but the younger people watching this tape probably don't know, the city was much different at that time. Not only in many ways. Everybody didn't have a swimming pool. There weren't the community places to join together as there are today, even outside of, quote, country clubs. And so it became the place where we all went. I mean, during the summer, although some would go to camps, many would spend their time at the Columbian Club. There were things to do all day long. It was a safe place. It was an accommodating place. There were things to do, and everyone there knew you. The people that worked there were almost like extended part of the families. We knew everybody on a first name basis. If someone looked different, they would call our parents and tell them, I think that George might be ill, he looks different today. So it was a very comfortable place to visit and a good place to have fun when we were young, and lots of things to do. So that's my experience when I went there. My children probably didn't use it to the same degree. At that time, swimming pools at the homes were more common. The friends that they had, there were a lot of other ways to relate to other individuals and Jewish individuals if that was their inclination. So there were clubs and other things that they were able to do that really weren't prevalent, or at least not to me when I was growing up here. And I went to school that had a few Jewish students in the school. I wasn't a member of any of the major Jewish organizations such as AZA, all of those. And so my life centered around my home and the Columbian Club at that time.
Right. What were, Chuck, what were some of the activities? I know you say golf, that was one of the reasons that you joined, because of the golf. What were some of the other activities that you and your family enjoyed at the club?
Yeah, well, early on when I was younger, all right, it was not only a social place, it was a place where we ate, all right. There was bingo and those things, which was popular at that time. So there were events that we could go as a family that were excuses to be together, probably. As I rejoined in the 90s, the world was different. My children were of an age that, although they had some things to do with me, not as much as they would, and so we still used to enjoy the food, which was still a major benefit of being a member out there at that time, and played tennis on occasion, but mostly it was the socialization, dinners, special events, and for me, then the golf.
Sure. You mentioned earlier you made friends, obviously, when you were young with other family members, and then obviously when you're as an adult. You still get with some of those friends? Are you still in communication with any of your friends from your Columbian Club?
Yes and no. Yeah, it seems as most of the people I've known, most of my friends, because of life as it takes us, don't relate to each other all of the time. Right. But as I left initially in the 70s, as I mentioned to you, and then rejoined in the mid-90s, there were several of the same people that were at the club at that time. But I also met a whole group of new people, because there were many other families of my age that had been members of the club through the, I suppose, probably 70s and 80s that I didn't know then. And so I had a whole new group of friends that I have socialized with since then. Mostly, again, those centered around golf has been the attraction, because I'm not a big tennis player, so the tennis players I wouldn't have met as much as the golf players. Right. That's right.
You care to share any particular memory that may jump out at you that you may have over the many years that you were there?
Well, I'm sure most of them everyone else has told you about before. Just to reiterate too, I think that the place was so comfortable. This is in the past when I was young. So comfortable that our parents would feel comfortable in leaving us there all day long, right, and not have to physically be there. And those memories are strong reminders of what life was, and of the bonds to those friends that even I don't see but infrequently today. Subsequently, on the second time I joined, it was much more centered around me at that time playing golf. Even though my children did play out there some and we'd go swimming and everything else, their life was not centered around the Columbian Club, right, as my life growing up was. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of anecdotal stories that I'm sure you've heard, but the best part about it was the people that were there. And as I'm sure that you remember from some of your time there, most of the stories were told over and over and over again, embellished each time a little bit different,
Exactly.
and attributed to another source, usually. Yeah.
A recurring theme that seems to keep coming up was about the food, how it was the place to eat and dine. And you'd mentioned, there weren't a lot of great dining spots back in the day, back as we go back, but the Columbian Club was known for their food, among other things. What were some of your favorite meals, items on the menu?
I can tell you, I don't like fish, so they had the lobster night was apparently one of the best things most people liked, and I understand, even though I didn't go, that I was paying for that anyway. That's what I understand. But those who didn't grow up in Dallas don't really know. But when I came back to Dallas in 1974, I came from the West Coast, and we actually could fly in sourdough bread from San Francisco that the pilots would bring for us. You could go out to Love Field that time, or I think that's where we went most of the time, or wherever it was, and they would bring in sourdough bread for you. You couldn't get anything like that here hardly at that time, and so the Mr. Osborne, who ran the club, was well known, although feared by some, I think. But for whatever reason, the reputation he had in managing the club and the food was well known outside of the Jewish circles in the city. And most lifetime events at that time were held at the Columbian Club. Actually, I'm not sure some people didn't join just so that they could use the Columbian Club for those events. I know that because my children tell me when I was trying to remember exactly when we joined, that you had to be a member. My father, who was still a member when my children were younger, at one time had a party for us out there so we could have an event out there at one time. So that's what the reputation was, and it was befitting to have that. The buffets were wonderful, and the whole surroundings of them was a pleasure to go to.
Right.
And it was also a social event. I mean, I could see my friends that were out there, the same ones I went swimming with, played tennis with early on, played golf with, were the same ones that we would see at the buffet. And when someone wasn't there, we'd have to call and find out where they were.
Awesome. So let me ask you, why do you think in your opinion, why do you think the Columbian Club closed?
Well, let me say the things I would have an opinion on. The world has changed a lot since then. There are a lot of different choices that people make about food, entertainment, golf. There's a lot of other ways to be involved socially than through the Columbian Club. And geographically, it's not in the middle of the place where necessarily you as a member would live, but the people that would want to be members of the Columbian Club now live all over the Metroplex anyway. And I think that even though, and the leniency for assimilation into other social places for Jewish and other people has changed since the 50s and 60s. So I would think that's a major factor. I'm not being in the management part or administrative part, also understand that there may have been some decisions in the past that made it economically difficult for the club to survive, and it was felt that the members or the attraction of new members was limited partly because of those economic circumstances and the cost that it would be to them. It's a shame, but it's a change of the times, I think. When I visit, which I rarely do, the other country clubs in the city, they are a different feel than the country club that I remember growing up with. And I'm not sure I would want to join one of those clubs. So,
do you think the Columbian Club could make it today? You think that?
Well, I think it's already shown you that it can't. you know, a lot of the people that would probably join the Columbian Club for the country club atmosphere are members of other clubs. And those clubs, for whatever reason, have a draw to them, whether it be geographic or their friends, and neighborhoods are different now than it was before. But I think I think the experiment has already been completed.
Right. Are you familiar with the new Columbian Club?
I just know the speakeasy downtown, or the bar.
The bar, I think.
Yeah, I've just heard about it. I have
Right.
not been there.
Right.
But yes, I've heard that.
Yeah, I think they have some memorabilia and maybe some of the menu items from the club they're serving.
Yes, that's what I've heard.
Interesting. Before I ask my last question, is there anything I haven't asked that you'd like to share or have?
If I think of it, I will let you know.
There you go. So my last question, Chuck, is when I mention the word or the words Columbian Club, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
I see that bird,
Mm.
right, which represented, I think, all of the pageantry, all of the formalness, all of the good memories that I've had at that place, and reminds me of the friends I had there, and the adults that, although they weren't friends, are a past generation.
Right.
A good remembrance. Good remembrance.
It's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your memories of the Columbian Club with us.
Well, thank you for asking me.
Absolutely.